Number 10, 1971 to 1980 Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto became one of the most infamous cars in American history, and for all the wrong reasons. This subcompact was Ford's answer to the fuel crisis, designed to compete with smaller Japanese imports. Under the hood, you'd find a 1.6-liter inline-4 producing just 75 horsepower, or optionally a 2.0-liter with 86 horsepower. But here's where things get dark. The Pinto had a serious design flaw. The fuel tank was positioned behind the rear axle with minimal protection. In rear-end collisions, the tank could rupture and catch fire. Ford knew about this issue, but conducted a cost-benefit analysis and decided recalls would be more expensive than paying out lawsuits. This decision became a textbook case of corporate negligence. The Pinto's legacy isn't about fuel economy or affordability. It's about one of the worst safety scandals in automotive history. Number 9, 1958 to 1960 Ford Edsel. The Edsel is legendary for being one of the biggest commercial failures in automotive history. Ford invested over $250 million in development and marketing, expecting to sell 200,000 units in the first year. They sold barely 63,000. The Edsel came with various engine options, including a 361 cubic inch V8 producing 303 horsepower. So what went wrong? The styling was controversial, especially that vertical grille that people said looked like a horse collar. The car was launched during a recession, and the massive hype actually worked against it. When people finally saw the Edsel, they were disappointed. Quality control was terrible, with cars arriving at dealerships with missing parts and mechanical problems. The name Edsel literally became synonymous with failure. Ford pulled the plug after just 3 model years, losing hundreds of millions of dollars. It remains one of the most spectacular flops in business history. Number 8, 1991 to 1996 Ford Escort. The second-generation Escort was supposed to be Ford's answer to the Honda Civic and Toyota Corolla, but it failed miserably. Power came from a 1.9-liter 4-cylinder engine producing just 88 horsepower in base form, or 127 horsepower in the GT version. These were some of the least reliable small cars of the era. The automatic transmission was a disaster, slipping and failing regularly. Head gaskets would blow, causing overheating and coolant leaks. The timing belt would fail prematurely, destroying the engine if it broke. Electrical issues were constant. Alternators, starters, and sensors failed repeatedly. Rust ate these cars alive, especially in the rear quarter panels and wheel wells. The build quality was terrible, with cheap interior materials that fell apart quickly. While Japanese competitors were running for 200,000 miles with minimal maintenance, Escorts were dying at 100,000 miles. Ford lost an entire generation of compact car buyers to Honda and Toyota. Number 7, 1995 to 1999 Ford Contour. The Ford Contour was supposed to be Ford's world car, sharing its platform with the European Mondeo. It came with either a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder producing 125 horsepower or a 2.5-liter V6 with 170 horsepower. Ford marketed it as a driver's car with European handling, but buyers didn't care. The problems started immediately. The automatic transmission was weak and prone to failure. The engine would develop oil leaks, and the head gaskets would fail prematurely. Electrical gremlins plagued these cars. Power windows stopped working, sensors failed constantly, and the check engine light was always on. The cooling system had issues with thermostats and water pumps failing. Interior quality was cheap, with plastics that cracked and trim pieces that fell off. Despite decent handling, the Contour was cramped inside with a tiny trunk. Sales were terrible because the Honda Accord and Toyota Camry offered more space, better reliability, and stronger resale values. Ford discontinued it after just 5 years. Number 6, 1974 to 1976 Ford Mustang II. This one hurts because it wears the Mustang badge. The Mustang II was Ford's response to the 1970s oil crisis, and it represented everything wrong with that era. The base engine was a pathetic 2.3-liter 4-cylinder producing just 88 horsepower. Even the V6 option only made 105 horsepower. The performance V8 version had a 302 cubic inch engine, making a sad 140 horsepower. This was a Mustang that couldn't get out of its own way. It was built on the Ford Pinto platform, sharing parts with one of the worst cars ever made. The Mustang was supposed to be about performance, freedom, and American muscle. The Mustang II was about fuel economy and emissions compliance. It was slow, uninspiring, and handled terribly. Yes, it sold well because of the gas crisis, but it nearly killed the Mustang nameplate. For enthusiasts, the Mustang II represents the darkest period in Mustang history, a betrayal of everything the car was supposed to represent. Number 5. 1995 to 1998 Ford Windstar. The Ford Windstar was Ford's entry into the minivan market, and it was plagued with problems from day one. It came with a 3.0-liter V6 making 150 horsepower or a 3.8-liter V6 with 200 horsepower. But power wasn't the issue here. The Windstar had catastrophic reliability problems. The transmission would fail prematurely, often before 100,000 miles, requiring expensive replacements. The rear axle had a tendency to rust and fail, which could cause the wheels to literally fall off while driving. Head gaskets would blow, causing engine overheating and expensive repairs. Rust was everywhere. Door handles, tailgates, and body panels would corrode aggressively. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the worst vehicles for reliability. Owners faced constant repairs and mounting bills. While competitors like the Honda Odyssey and Toyota Sienna were building bulletproof minivans, Ford was building nightmares. The Windstar gave Ford a terrible reputation in the minivan segment that took years to recover from.
Number 4. 1980-1982 Ford Thunderbird. The 8th generation Thunderbird was a disaster that tarnished a once great nameplate. This downsized T-Bird shared its platform with the equally disappointing Ford Fairmont. Engine options included a 3.3-liter inline-6 with just 91 horsepower and various V8s that were strangled by emissions equipment, with the best making only 131 horsepower. The styling was awkward and unattractive, with a boxy design that had none of the elegance of previous Thunderbirds. The interior was cheap plastic everywhere, and build quality was atrocious. Cars would leave the factory with misaligned panels, rattles, and electrical problems. The performance was laughable. Even with the V8, acceleration was painfully slow and took over 13 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. Handling was sloppy and vague. Ford took a personal luxury car with a proud heritage and turned it into a generic, unreliable, underpowered sedan. Sales collapsed, and the Thunderbird's reputation was severely damaged. It took Ford years to rebuild the nameplate's image after this catastrophic failure. Number 3. 1984-1986 Ford Tempo. The Ford Tempo was a front-wheel drive compact sedan that became notorious for terrible reliability and cheap construction. It came with a 2.3-liter four-cylinder producing just 84 horsepower, making it painfully slow. Some models got a 3.0-liter V6 with 135 horsepower, but it was hardly better. These cars were plagued with engine problems. Head gaskets failed constantly, causing coolant leaks and overheating. The automatic transmission would slip and eventually fail completely. Rust was a massive issue, with the rockers, fenders, and doors rotting out within just a few years. The electrical system was a nightmare, with alternator failures, battery drains, and sensor malfunctions. The brakes were inadequate and would wear out quickly. The interior quality was atrocious. Seats would collapse, door panels fell off, and everything rattled. Despite being cheap, nobody wanted them because they were so unreliable. The Tempo represented everything wrong with American cars in the 1980s when Japanese imports were crushing Detroit. Number 2. 1981 to 1990 Ford Escort. The first-generation American Ford Escort was rushed to market to compete with fuel-efficient Japanese cars, and it showed. The base engine was a 1.6-liter four-cylinder, producing a pathetic 65 horsepower. Later models got a high-output version with 80 horsepower, which was still terrible. These Escorts were reliability nightmares from the start. The carburetor-equipped engines ran poorly and were hard to start. The automatic transmission, made by Mazda, was the only decent component. Head gaskets failed regularly, and the cooling system was inadequate. Rust destroyed these cars. Fenders, doors, and floor pans would rot out within just 5 years in salt states. The electrical system was primitive with constant failures. The interior was cramped and built with the cheapest materials imaginable. Brakes were undersized and stopping distances were dangerously long. While the European Escort was a decent car, the American version was a cheap, poorly built economy car that gave Ford a terrible reputation. It's amazing these cars survived the 1980s at all.
Number 1, 1978 to 1983 Ford Fairmont. The Fairmont was a compact sedan that epitomized everything wrong with American cars in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The Fairmont came with various engine options, including a 2.3-liter four-cylinder producing just 88 horsepower, a 3.3-liter inline-six with 91 horsepower, or small V8s that were choked by emissions equipment. The Fairmont was a complete disaster in terms of build quality and reliability. The body panels were so thin that they would dent from simply leaning against the car. Rust ate these vehicles alive. Rockers, fenders, door bottoms, and trunk floors would corrode through within just a few years, even in dry climates. The automatic transmission was weak and prone to failure, often needing replacement before 80,000 miles. Engine problems were constant, with carburetor issues, overheating, and oil leaks. The electrical system was primitive, with alternators, starters, and voltage regulators failing regularly.